What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Realness. I'm sitting here with my boy Rob Dial. What's up, man?
What's up, buddy?
You over there just drinking a green juice or purple juice?
Yeah, it's purple.
It's
Yeah.
yeah. There's some greens in there though.
Yeah, there's some spinach somewhere in there, I bet.
Somewhere with the apple juice. So, dude, we laid it down. It happened.
I know. How long was that?
Like an hour, a little over an hour.
Damn. Yeah, we covered a lot in an hour. That went by fast.
We were talking super fast.
We were.
We
Are you a visual person?
I don't know. I see things.
Yeah.
I see colors mostly.
Well, that's a good thing. It'd be a problem when you don't. But they say that visual people speak really fast because they're trying to verbally say what they're seeing in their head. And that's why I go so fast, because I'm super visual.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I've never heard that before, but
Yeah.
it's confirmed. It
Yeah.
has been confirmed. I'm a visual person now.
There you go.
I learned something about myself in the fucking podcast intro.
That was like a 2-hour podcast in an hour is what it was.
It was. You might have to put it on 0.75 speed. But I
Yeah.
think there was a lot of stuff there, man. That's why I love follow-up episodes and having the second show with somebody is
Yeah.
because we get a chance to not. We've kind of got the clunkiness out of the way, and
Right.
let's get to work.
For sure.
Yeah. So this is it's a good one. We talk about our parents passing away,
Yeah.
things like that,
Grandparents, what we learned from our grandparents.
and how to take
How to
lessons from everybody around you.
How to journal.
Journaling was a big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it all kind of
Self-awareness.
Oh, self-awareness.
Yep.
That term it's getting beat up.
I know, man. I don't know anything better, which is what sucks. It's the only term
Something's
that I
going to
know.
come around. I
I
think
hope
that's
so.
what I think woke is going to transcend like joking and just become a part of the normal
The
vernacular.
woke journal, is that the next one?
Oh my god. No, the no bullshit journal is the next one.
Okay. I
And the
like that
intention journal.
I
And of
like
course, guys, if you get fired up the journal right after this podcast, I need you to go to gettherealness.com and get yourself an intention journal. 90 days.
You should definitely name it the No Bullshit Journal. That's a great name.
The next one is the No Bullshit Journal.
love
And it's
it.
just, and this we talk about in this podcast, is asking yourself really, really difficult questions.
Yep.
And that's the idea behind it. If somebody steals my idea, we're going to fight. I'm going to come find you. No, but it's asking yourself those really difficult questions, and it's in a way that's productive and empowering. It's not like to beat you up, but it's let's be critical of ourselves.
Yeah.
In a way that tests the amount of compassion that we have. I think that's something that you and I both embody and try to bring that to the world. And I say I embody that in the way that I know that I'm kind of a dick sometimes, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to be.
I am a lot, and it sucks. I'm trying to get past
I
that.
just like to say I'm a entitled douchebag in recovery.
I'm a much smaller dick than I used to be, though. I've shrunk.
The shrinkage. You just jumped your ego in
Yeah.
cold water and
Yeah, I
it
was about to
shrunk
say,
right up.
it's like a Wim Hof dick is what I am now. It's way smaller. After he
Oh,
jumps
wow.
into the ice water.
Oh, you guys are in for a treat. Enjoy this one. Well, I've got some news for you guys. We're going to be adding a new style of show to the Realness feed. And as you guys know, there's several different types of shows we have on the Realness feed. We have interviews just like this one, which kind of make up that core piece, and then Design Your Life episodes and the Realness Rundown. I love bringing new styles to the feed to see how everybody engages with those. And we do these Wandering Wednesdays in the Realness community. I love doing them. I've had so much fun. I've been doing them every Wednesday for about 2 years now. It's so fun. It's one of my favorite times of the week. And it's a great time to check in and engage with people. And I've been wanting to bring that style of conversation to the podcast. And when I saw my friend Kyle Tierman was fielding voice memos from his audience and putting those as a podcast review on his podcast, the light bulb went off, and I thought, well, why don't I just take questions from the audience that they want me to address and just like wander about and dissect and play with and talk out. And we'll splice those into the show, and we'll have Q&A episodes similar to what we do in the Realness community, and that'll just add another layer of content, and as well as getting you guys involved. One thing that I feel like podcasts are so amazing that we can just put out whatever the fuck we want, say whatever the fuck we want, and share it with as big an audience as we can get our hands on. We do miss that two-way engagement. And if you feel called to share a question, share a story, something that you would like to have talked about and discussed on the show, I want you to create a voice memo first on your phone. So just go to the voice memo app, create a voice memo, try and keep it under a minute, something that, and you don't have to share your name. There's no specifications. And of course, I won't be using all of them, but I'll take some of the ones that I feel like I am qualified to ramble about, and we'll splice those into a Q&A show and have some fun with it. So I want you to create that voice memo if you feel called to make this happen, and email it to podcast@gettherealness.com. So that's podcast@gettherealness.com, and hopefully we can have some fun with this. I'm really stoked about it, And can't wait to hear all your sweet, sweet voices just piling into the inbox. So we will see y'all soon. Now, here is an Onnit ad just for you. Onnit.com. Human optimization. What does that even mean? What does it mean to be optimized? Well, that just depends. That depends on you. That depends on who you are and what you're trying to do with yourself. So if you listen to this podcast, you're going to get super woke. You're going to get super woke. You're going to take your self-awareness up a notch. With more self-awareness, you can implement more strategies into being optimized that actually have an impact. And then what I need you to do with that awareness is go to onnit.com/real. You're going to get 10% off any supplement and any food item. That includes Alpha Brain, New Mood, the new Elk Bar, protein bars. If you're a meathead, you can get creatine and glutamine and whey protein. Like, there is so much stuff, guys. If you have not been over to onnit.com/real, you're doing yourself a disservice. They only accept the best supplements. The best supplements in the game from the best sources. Earth-grown, super lit, fully Realness endorsed. Onnit.com/real, guys. 10% off any food, any supplement. Get some. Try it out. And if you go right now, if you're listening to this podcast while it's fresh, you can get a free trial of Alpha Brain. Just pay shipping. Try it out. It is incredible. And it's free, mostly. Just shipping. So make it happen, guys. And now enjoy this episode with my homie, Rob Dial. Loud and clear. So, dude, good to have you back.
Good to be back.
It's good.
Now we're in a
right?
different place. I looked back the last time that we spoke, I was wearing a sweater, and now I'm like hot as hell, just trying to survive in this freaking city.
A lot of triple digits. And it's like I want to wear jeans all the time, and it's just not practical, man. You're getting that swamp ass. It's just not.
Dude, I'm getting swamp ass just from sitting inside right now.
I know. It's that outdoor lighting. It's that nice natural lighting that we need for all this.
Speaking of that, let's put this guy.
Let's put the artificial lighting on as well. So, guys, if you could see the setup right now for the podcast, like we're going for it. I got my camera on a Yahtzee box. Rob's got an actual, because he's a professional. He has a tripod set up, and we're mic'd up and hot.
This is a Walmart tripod though, so it's not that professional.
It's a white trash type of tripod. So, dude, one thing I wanted to talk about, and this has been on my mind a lot, and Jordan Peterson's been on so many shows as of late, and since we're both men and unmarried men at that, we're young men, I think is what they would say.
Yep.
Are we young anymore?
No, I actually just had this conversation yesterday with my masseuse. Was
it during a massage, for context?
Yeah, it was during a massage.
Okay.
And she was just, I don't remember how we got into it, but I was like, yeah, I'm not because obviously like I'm sore all over from literally just waking up now. And I was basically talking about that, and I was like, yeah, because I'm 32, and 3 times in the past like 4 months, someone has said to me, "You look really good for your age." And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, I've never, number one, thank you, I guess. But number two, that means that I'm getting old, where it's never been like, it used to be like, oh, you're mature for your age. Now it's like, oh, you look really good for your age. I'm like, shit, I'm not young anymore. That's what it means. So to answer your question, no, I don't think we're that young anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're getting to the age, and so am I. I'm 31, and where it's a little bit more acceptable to look like shit. It's like, because this is when the hair starts going. This is when you've been sitting down a lot. The metabolism slows down if you're not taking care of yourself. It's where the time you put in your 20s into being semi-responsible and not eating like shit, where it starts to actually matter.
For sure. I feel like part of the reason why I'm getting the fact that people are saying that I look good for my age is because I did actually really take that seriously. Like, I stopped eating shitty food at like 22, Yeah. So I think that there's some people, we're also part of the age where I look at some of my friends I went to high school with, and I'm like, dude, he looks 45. Some people look like shit right now.
Man, I go back home, and I'm from a little bitty town in North Texas, and all the guys my age, they don't, none of them have hair.
Yeah.
Like it's
I
like
know.
where did
Yeah.
and I'm like, how did I mean maybe a lot of that's genetic, but I'm like, how much of
Yeah.
that isn't genetic?
Yeah.
How much of that is just the fact that you like drink a lot of
You beat
Coca-Cola
yourself up for
and
12 years.
yeah, and you
Yeah.
just don't take care of yourself and you don't sleep and your hormones are shitty because
Yeah.
you just haven't even invested into yourself.
I think it's I would say 50-50. Like there's definitely genetics in there, but there's also, nutrition
Yeah.
and fitness and all of those things in there as well.
And I think through the 20s too, we start to pattern a lot of behavior as to how we'll handle situations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your lifestyle and your nutrition and,
Mm-hmm.
and taking care of your body and your mind. We learn those lessons in our 20s.
Yeah.
Either we pick them up later on from lack of having those,
Mm-hmm.
or creating like a positive, at least a little positive spin on the way that we handle ourselves. There's things I did in my early 20s that I'm like, man, I would never do that now.
Oh, like most of the stuff I did in my 20s, I would never do now. I was actually saying, this is another conversation, because I had a 3-hour massage. So there's a lot of
Jesus
conversation.
Christ, dude, you had a Joe Rogan linked massage.
like I get long massages from this lady, and like we'll talk for like hours the entire time. It's nonstop. And one of the things that I said to her was when we talked about the age thing, we talked about literally everything, but I said your 20s is basically your building up of your ego, and then when you get to 30, I think it's the deconstruction of the ego that you've created. Where it's like, I feel like my 20s, I was constantly always trying to prove myself to somebody else or to prove myself to myself. And now I'm trying to tell myself that I don't mean shit. Like I'm really not, and that's why I think like you get to old people that are like 65, 70 years old, and they just don't seem to care. Like they're just like, all right, whatever. Like it's not a big deal. They don't need to prove themselves or anything like that. Is they've gotten to the point where they're just like, whatever, man. Like it's not worth it. And I think that a lot of people that we're talking about that look older right now, or they've stressed themselves out a lot in their 20s, which is why at 31, 32 years old they look 45 as well, is because they've been constantly trying to prove themselves. They've been trying to do something or prove to the world about how amazing they are, that they're actually worthy of love or worthy of praise or worthy of something. And I'm at the point where I wake up and tell myself, like, you don't mean anything. Just be okay with it.
Yeah.
Like you'll literally just return to dust someday. You will be forgotten by everybody, and everything that you ever know and love and everything around you will eventually be dust. And it's like, it's all right. It's a scary thought to a lot of people. I think when you really become at ease with it, it's actually very empowering, because you just realize you can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's also a lot of freedom in accepting the not knowingness of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm here, and is this planet going to be obliterated by the sun exploding at some point?
Yeah.
It seems likely.
Based on what
Neil deGrasse Tyson says,
Yeah.
that seems like it may go down
Yeah.
at some point, and that's okay. But I'm here anyways, so I might as well do something with myself. And then I think one thing that you alluded to there is the desire to look outside yourself for fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens so often. It's like, let me prove myself.
Yeah.
Like, let me prove myself. And then one thing I've had with a lot of my clients that have that mentality, and I believe that you resonate with certain people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I end up working with a lot of guys in that like mid-20s identity crisis that we all go through, where you're starting to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're almost reverted back to a childlike state in your mid-20s if you're there for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you've started to look outside, and that you've actually been relatively successful by the world standards.
Yeah.
And then you get a moment where you have to look in for the first time,
Yep.
and it's overwhelming as fuck. And I think a lot of people will put that away and say, okay, like, whoa, that was a lot. It's like where you see these people that have their first mushroom trip in their mid-20s, and they're like, man, that was heavy. That was too much for me. That was a lot. And you get basically hit with a Mack truck of information about what's going on inside of you,
For sure.
without any tools to handle it. and then as you try to process that, you start to say, well, shit, man, I've got to look inside and say, like, man, this isn't the world's fault. The way that my life is going isn't a product of the world. It's a product of how I'm showing up for my life on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And that is liberating and overwhelming, right? It can be both.
Mm-hmm.
And then you end up, okay, let me pick up some tools as to how to handle that, manage that. And then let me start to work with that phrase, you create your own reality, and get past the fact that it sounds like woo-woo bullshit, but there is something to it. There is something to the fact that I can shape the way that I see the world and the way that I show up for the world. Yeah. And that's a fun game to play, and that's a game that feeds back into a really empowered life, a really fulfilled life, and then finding an authentic voice which is a process that never really ends. Like, you don't get to authenticity and be like, oh, I fucking made it. I graduated to authenticity land.
Yeah.
It's like, no, dude, it's a game, and you're just going to keep going round and round and finding out the places in your existence and the way that you're bringing yourself to the world that are kind of full of shit.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And if you can smile at that, then you're winning.
For sure. I think that the reason why older people are so much more chill is because of the fact that when I was younger, I felt like I knew everything. And now as I get older, I realize I don't know anything. And I think the older that you get, the more that you realize you don't really know anything, but you also become at peace with that. And it's like I was saying, with trying to prove yourself, I was constantly trying to prove that I knew everything and always wanted to be right. And if I didn't know something, God forbid, like I could go Google it, which then I would spend time researching. So the next time it came up, like
deep on Wikipedia.
Yeah, right. And so it's like, as you get older, you're just like, yeah, I don't know everything. And I'm literally just, I've been saying this to a lot of people, I'm literally just trying to be more. And I don't mean be more in the fact that I want to be a better me, which I do. I mean be more just in the fact of exist more. Like I just want to be more. Like just be, like just exist, which is completely opposite than I've ever been, because I've always had the thing inside of me where I always have to be pushing and pushing and pushing. And, you know, if you look at my strengths finder, my number one strength was competition. So I always have to beat you. And I always had that going in my head. And now I'm like trying to reprogram that of just being like, hey man, you're going to lose and it's okay. But that's like part of the lesson is you learn more when you lose than when you win. You know? Yeah,
a lot of times. I mean, and I would even say, you know, to take that a step further is look at when you being okay with losing. Mm-hmm. It's about how you. There's this trope, right, where it's like it's not about winning or losing. It's about how you play the game, which is true.
Yeah.
And in growing up, you know, especially if you think the like typical varsity blues, overbearing dad, where it's like, you know, the ref made a bad call and the kid's fucking throwing a temper tantrum and he's, you know, and the dad's like, yeah, fuck that guy. You know, and you're basically teaching this kid that he can't adjust himself to whatever circumstances, where it's like, oh, the world's out, you know, that guy's out to get you because you're too good, or they should have given you the ball more.
Right.
And it's like, well, that makes you an asshole.
Yeah.
That turns you in, that literally programs you to be kind of a dick.
Yeah.
And that's not beneficial for anybody. That's not playing the game well. And I think if you look at it and you say, if I play the game well, and I'm enjoyable to play with, and this is growing up too, it's like if I'm enjoyable to play the game with, regardless of the outcome, well then that's winning in a way, and that's teaching me social skills that can become valuable in all aspects of my life. Yeah. Because whether you look at it or not, the gym, flag football, golf, like these things that really aren't as important on the macro scale, like they're definitely good for you and they're fun, but there's something you can learn in that when it's like when you slice it into the woods.
Yeah.
Are you going to like break your club over your knee and throw a temper tantrum?
Yep.
Because then you're a child. Or can you laugh it off and be like, well, this is going to be an adventure.
Yep.
You know, and that makes you fun to play with, which also means if you lose that big account at work, you're not going to take it so personally. And you're like, okay, well, what can we learn from this? How can we unpack that? The obstacle is the way, you know, as Ryan Holiday and every other Stoic philosopher in history.
I don't think I've actually. I was on before I went to the 10-day silent meditation retreat.
Yeah.
So I came back from the 10-day silent meditation retreat a couple months ago, and it's kind of a lot about what you're saying of like not reacting to certain things when certain thing happens to you. And one of the things that they teach you to do is you sit in a position and you don't move, and you're going to feel pain, like to the point where it's really bad pain sometimes.
You mean like physical body pain?
Physical body
your
pain.
Upper back gets tight and your hips.
Like to the point where, you know, it'll test you. Like it really, and I'm a very, very calm person, but to the point where literally I was like wanting to storm out. And it was weird because I was like, why is this coming? It was day 4. I was like, why is this coming up like this? But then they teach you, you know, the what they call anicca, which means everything passes away basically, right? So like your pain will pass away, your pleasure will pass away, you will pass away, everything that you know and love will eventually pass away. So you have to learn to either, you know, have that drive you crazy your entire life or just become at peace with it. And so the whole idea is that if you can sit in a position for an hour and go through pain or have like, you know, certain itches or something like that, and then just not move and not allow your brain to react to it, to not react to pain. You know, reacting to pain is the most animalistic part of our brain.
Yeah.
And if you cannot react to pain, you cannot react to anything. So if you can train yourself to sit in a meditation position for an hour and to feel really bad neck pain and go, you know what? just let it be. I don't wish that it was gone. I'm just going to let it exist and just let it exist, and it'll eventually probably go away. But I'm not going to try to force it to go away or to try to move to make it go away. I will let it exist, and eventually it will go away. And what happens is it does eventually go away. But not reacting to that trains the part of your brain that if someone cuts you off in the middle of the road, you're not going to be like, oh, screw that guy and freak out on him.
Yeah.
But it's the form of that very simple act of just not moving when you're in pain can literally train your brain to be a master of reacting with whatever happens to you in the external world. So it was just that alone on itself was just like this massive learning where it's like, okay, Nietzsche is what they always say, if it feels really good, it will eventually go. Like you might get to a point where you're like, damn, this breeze on my face inside of the meditation hall feels amazing. But eventually I'm going to get to a point where it's not going to be there, And so whenever it's not there, I don't wish that it's there, and I don't crave it, as they say. Whenever the pain is there, I don't wish it to be away. I don't, try to push it away. I just accept the good and I accept the bad and realize that that's literally that pain and pleasure inside your body is everything in your life. Everything is you're either moving towards pleasure or away from pain. And if you can just be okay with it and just continue on the way that you are and realize you can't control everything, your life will be 100 times easier.
Yeah, exactly. You're so spot on with that. And this isn't, the thing about that is, like, that's not a new idea.
No.
Right? That's the
2,600 years. This form of meditation was 2,600 years old, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But still people can't get it. Like, nobody knows this,
Yeah, and it's not something that gets taught to us
Yeah.
in a way unless you have super hippie parents.
Yeah.
Which even then you would rebel against it and then find it later.
Yeah,
as
exactly.
we all do, right? And it's the state of impermanence where it's like not getting caught up in the good, right? And it's not in the what feels good at the time. It's that is it so mentality where something good happens, like, oh man, this is great, everybody celebrates it, and it's like, maybe it's good.
Yeah.
Maybe that you have a string of those through your younger life into adulthood, and a lot of good things, a lot of good fortune, and turns you into an entitled asshole.
Yeah.
Right? Or you have a lot of things that seem seemingly negative things, right? We know these like come from the started from the bottom, now we're here type stories.
Right.
And these things that seem negative, but they gave you this outstanding resilience to overcome, which created a strong, grounded human being that could accomplish amazing things.
For sure.
So in the moment, they may seem good or bad.
Yep.
But it's about how you embody those and what you can take from them.
Yeah. I think
move
that,
forward. And knowing that it's all going to go away.
Yeah. And I think I always tell people the best day of my life was also the worst day of my life. So when my dad passed away when I was 15 years old, that was obviously the worst day of my life. But it was also the best day of my life. And the reason why is because that's when my entire life perspective changed, right? I didn't want him to die, but when he did die, he was the very first person I ever knew that passed away. And I was like, oh, okay, this is real. Like, this is actually happening. He'll never come back from this. So I need to figure out a way to get past it. And I remember he died on November 1st. My sister's 21st birthday was November 24th. And I remember we were leaving and I was driving the car. I had my driver's permit because I was 15. And my mom asked the question. I literally remember being like, it was like I can like literally see it. I'm in the driver's seat. My mom's next to me, and behind her is my sister. And my mom said, so, what do you think about your father's death? Like, now that it's been 3 weeks, how are you guys processing it? And I remember going, I think that if Dad were to see how much good is going to come from this, he'd be okay with it. And it was like that thought, and I don't even view myself as that same person. Like, I view myself like that kid was wise to be able to think that. But the reason why I do what I do right now, and the reason why I have so much drive and so much resilience, was because that was literally the worst thing that ever happened to me. And it pushed me to do what I'm doing now. Like, I wouldn't have gone through personal growth and tried to become my own therapist had that never happened. Yeah. Or have that childhood where, being raised with an alcoholic father. And then so what I did was, because of the fact that we didn't have money to go to therapy, I was like, I'll become my own therapist. I'll just try to figure myself out. And in doing so over the past, now 17 years, and feeling like I've at least become my own therapist and worked through a lot of stuff on my own, I can then teach that to other people as well. And that's what I do. Like, that is legitimately my profession and what I make videos on and what goes, things that go viral or whatever it is. But it was the worst day of my life, and I could have let it stay the worst day of my life. But for some reason, I had this thought of it's going to be the best day of my life as well, because I'm going to take this perspective and this really hard thing that I'm going through and make it, if this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, I'm also going to put all of the effort that I possibly can to make sure that more good comes out of it than this one bad event. And from that's literally that at 15 years old, that was November 1st, 2001, like literally completely changed my life. So it's a
Yeah.
worst day, but it was also the best day. And, you know, my goal is how many people can I impact before I leave? And I don't think that I would have that drive unless that would have happened.
Yeah, man, I echo that sentiment. You know, there's something to be said for these moments of forcing you to reflect on yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to hit them at some point. Like either you can choose to reflect on yourself through some kind of encouragement or that being taught to you in some way,
Yeah.
or these massive moments where everything seems like it came crashing down.
Yeah.
Like so when and death is such an interesting thing to think
Mhm.
about because it really puts you to the test. And as a
Mhm.
15-year-old kid, that fuck man, I can't even comprehend that. You know, my grandparents raised me and they were younger. They took me in when I was about 5 and my brothers, and I ended up living with them until I graduated high school. And my grandmother was such a sweet lady. She was an enabler for sure, and she was
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean, like the
Yeah.
shadow side of love, like just
Yeah.
being a little too much, but
Yeah.
she just fucking loved people, and I grew up with them, and I think she may have gotten into high school, maybe.
Okay.
My grandfather dropped out of school in the 7th grade
Wow.
because his father passed away, and he had to take care. Him and his brother dropped out in the 6th and 7th grade to take care of their 3 sisters. So I mean, this is like blue collar, uneducated to the max. I mean,
Right.
they were picking cotton and like working in the. My granddad would work. He had a paper route first, and then he worked in a at the Air Force Base, and he would make scrambled eggs, like big, humongous batches of scrambled egg with like an oar. You know, like
Yeah.
you can imagine this like
It's like
15-year-old
400
kid.
eggs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and just like a ton of eggs, and they would just crack eggs. They get there, 3 in the morning, and then
Yeah.
making breakfast for the Air Force guys.
Yeah.
And then my grandmother got a job there working as a waitress, and they just built this life together. So they were married for 50 years, and then my grandmother got ALS. Was diagnosed with ALS, and it was the craziest thing to see this woman who taught me how to love. Like she just loved unconditionally to a fault, and had worked her whole life and was just a strong woman, but didn't believe that she deserved it. Like deserved to have a good life. Like there was just something, and we actually got to this with her when I did with OPEX, Optimum Performance Experience, when I was in the CrossFit world. Like we did this life coaching thing where I started to understand how it's what started the kind of snowball down the hill of
Right.
personal development, was understanding what your real values were.
Right.
And I got a chance to understand that if I could not try and always have something to say, if I would just create a space for her to speak back to me, she would tell me how she really felt.
Yeah.
And she literally said, and this was probably 4 years before she passed away, that she didn't feel like she deserved a good life because she had treated her body so poorly with smoking and eating bad, and she couldn't have compassion for herself, and she just put it on everyone else.
Yeah.
And so I get to see this woman who I loved so much. Like she was just like my heart, and I had drifted away, and I'd moved away, and would come back when I could, and came back more that last year that she was alive. And I had to take everything that I had learned, or thought that I had learned, or felt like it, put it all to the test. Like, listen, I know this is scary,
Yeah.
and everybody's telling you what you need to do, and the only thing I can do is be here and tell you, like, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like whatever happens, like there's no need to fight this thing.
Yeah.
Like there's no, just be where you are, when you are, like be more
Yeah.
right now in this last time, as like your legs stop working and your motor function goes away, and then eventually your lungs stop working. Like it's just, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And to have to sit there with that, like, and hold space and
Yeah.
be grounded, and having that conversation with somebody who knew every time could be the last time.
It's crazy.
You know, every time could be the last time. And then having that feeling that last time was the last time, and I'm 30 years old, and I'm like, I really had to put what I believed about the end of life to the test, because I had to watch it happen to somebody that I cared about so much.
Yeah.
And what came from that was me understanding, really truly understanding what life can be as far as a legacy, as far as how you affect people. Like I got to, after she passed away, and I sat and reflected on that, and really challenged who I was as a human being and what I wanted to do. And I saw that, like, with her, right? Like, no one in that my hometown really, aside from my family, knows her or remembers her. I mean, It's not like she has a mural in the middle of town.
Right.
She just a lady, right? But she did really show up for people, and she was extremely reliable and extremely compassionate, and that created context for other people to emulate that in some way, myself included. And I used to say, like, she taught me how to love. I still say that, like, she taught me how to love.
Yeah.
And I saw that just showing up like that for people that you cared about
Yeah.
would live way longer than you would.
Mm-hmm.
No matter if you're an influencer, if you have a podcast, if you're a YouTube guy, if you're just a person, if you can show up for people and really be in your heart and grounded, there's something about that is contagious in a way.
For sure.
People pick up on that, and that can shift their life just 1 degree, 1 or 2 degrees. Even in the lifestyle design work that I do now, it's like I'm not a transformational coach. I'm not here to like change your life in 6 weeks.
Right.
But I can help you make a couple of 2 or 3 degree shifts just based on you understanding yourself and letting you talk it out. That can help you bring yourself to those relationships and connections more fully and more in your heart. And then from there, that spills out all over the place.
Yep.
And then it's not about you anymore.
Yeah.
You're living through your connections.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because the same way that you view your grandma is the way I view my grandpa. So literally up until we went out to hospice, everything, to literally to see my entire family. And I have a huge family of like 45 people on that side that all showed up when he was like in hospice. But to watch him literally be the exact same person I was literally with him when he died. Like I was in the room, my cousin and I were. But there was the thing that I always tell people is when someone passes away, the best way to deal with it, but to also honor them, is to take a pen and paper and figure out what you appreciated most about them, and then ask yourself how you can bring that into your day. Literally every morning I meditate on how I can be more like my grandfather.
That's huge.
Because of the fact that he was the nicest human I will ever meet in my entire life, to the point where I had his last meal. We didn't know it was his last meal, but I had his last meal with him, and it was this lobster bisque that he loved from my cousin's restaurant, right? And it was me, him, my mom, and my cousin. And as I was actually, drinking and eating this lobster bisque, I was watching him, and I put it in my journal that night before he actually passed away, because he passed away a few hours later. And I said, I got this realization that even though this was his favorite thing that he had ever, like his favorite meal, that if I were to say, Grandpa, I ran out, can I have the rest of yours? He would have said yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does somebody get to that level? Right? Like I'm trying to become less selfish, but to the point where this guy's last meal of his favorite thing that he's ever eaten, he would give to me, because it gives him more pleasure to see somebody else's face light up than to have it himself. And so that was one of the things of just like, to be that giving and that selfless is something that when I wake up in the morning and meditate, that I try to ask myself, how can I bring that into everything that I do? Because I know that's one of my flaws, and I know that was his strength.
Yeah.
And so it's like the best way to honor somebody when they pass away is to have them live through you with the best traits that they had. And so with him, I constantly think about that every single morning, because it was like, I got to the point where I was waking up and I was meditating just to meditate, but I didn't really have any goal of the meditation. And I was like, well, let me make something real out of it. Like, who do I want to be, and how do I want to show up in the world? And I asked myself that, and I was like, I want to be my grandfather when I grow up. Like, I want to be that guy. He wasn't super successful. Like, he was a civil engineer, and, he did okay for himself, but he wasn't like some famous person or impacted millions across the world or anything like that. But, it's cool to see that the entire family, 2 years after him and my grandma passed away 17 days. They were together for 71 years, and they passed away 17 days apart.
Wow.
And that was 2.5 years ago now. And to see that everyone in the family still continues to get together, and we're still probably even closer now than we ever have been, all of us, like massive family, to still come back and everybody fly from all over the United States to be together on Christmas or to be together for certain events. I know, any marriage, every single person will show up, shows that they built something that's really hard to build. Right? It's easier to build a company than it is to build a really tight-knit family that loves each other.
Oh, dude, that's no joke.
Yeah.
100%. And when you say that, and we're talking about our grandparents and our parents and how this affected us, is like, I think we have a almost like surrogate, like idol worship in a way.
For sure.
For people like Steve Jobs,
yeah,
or Elon Musk, or Peter Thiel,
yeah,
or whoever, fill in the blank, or Kylie Jenner, whatever the case may be. And it's like, I feel like we set the bar so quote unquote high as to what we need to aspire to be, that we miss everything that's right in our immediate surroundings. Like what's right around us is so impactful, and it's like, oh no, hang on, I can't pay attention to you because I want to be I want to, be like Kylie Jenner.
Yeah.
Be the youngest female billionaire, that's
Mhm.
cool,
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, there's so much to be said for learning from every single fucking person that you're
Mhm.
around.
Mhm.
Like everyone has something to teach you.
For sure. I was driving down the road the other day, and it was literally right down the street. Right on 35 in Riverside. There's always a
Yeah.
homeless person there.
Yeah.
And I drove up, and I was the only car that was there, and I gave him like 75 cents, whatever I had that was on me, right? And I kept my window, and he's like, thanks so much, man. He's like, how's your day going? I was like, my day's going great. How about yours? And he's like, man, I couldn't be happier. And he was an older guy, he's probably in his like 60s. He's like, I couldn't be happier. He's like, it's a beautiful day outside. He's like, I'm healthy right now. And he just found out that I just found out that that I'm gonna have a place to live for the first time in 5 years.
Wow. Hell
And
yeah,
he's like,
dude.
He's like, when I first got out here, I was 50 pounds more than I am now, and now I'm getting older. I really can't hold my own. But he goes, I've never been happier in my life. But this is a guy who's still at this point in time for the next few months is homeless, and he was just happy sitting in the sun. Like that's what he was happy about, because the day before it rained, and he's like, it's a beautiful day. I can't complain. It's an amazing day. And I was like, how many people do I know that have food, water, shelter, clothing, few people that love them, and they wake up and they're freaking pissed off just because they have to sit in traffic. Like, sorry, your Wi-Fi doesn't work as well as it could, right?
Dude.
Like, there's so many people that I heard a quote, a poem of a guy talking about problems, and we actually just watched it a while ago before you got here, and the guy says how blessed we are to have tragedy live on the tips of our tongues. Like that our tragedies now is just things that we can talk about, not the fact that we don't have water or something like that, or that we're struggling to even stay alive. It's that, oh, my Wi-Fi doesn't work as well as I want to in my house. Oh, my boss is an asshole.
Yeah.
All of those, like how lucky we are to have our tragedies live on the tip of our tongues. And he says it doesn't matter if your glass is half empty or if your glass is half full. There's 2 million people a year that die of dehydration. Drink the fucking water. And I was like, oh my God, that's so good, right? Like it's so good to just think that way, where it's just like we have so much going on that if we just take a step back and go, what can I be grateful for? We could just endlessly, for the entire rest of our day, talk about all of the little things we have to be grateful for. But, depression or sadness and all of these things are, what's wrong in someone's life is relative to what they have going on. But if they take themselves out of their day-to-day process and look at all the other things happening around the world, they're like, wow, I guess, if someone's listening to us right now, they're pretty blessed because they have some form of the internet to be able to listen to it.
Yeah.
Right? They have a lot more than the average person does.
Well, and they're seeking.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for people that are gathering around seeking a more full life.
Yeah.
And that's such a fucking let's live a full life. Like we can sell that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cute thing to say, but like what the fuck does that actually mean?
Right.
Like what does it actually mean to take ownership? One thing I love to do with my clients and the people that I work with is get them to nail down what certain words and phrases, because they get said so many times, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you?
Yeah.
Like one thing that I really love to have people define, it's like
Mm-hmm.
this definition is yours, man. Like your truth is your truth. Like,
Yep.
what does this mean to you? The same thing happens in relationships a ton, where it's like, what do you mean by commitment?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by reliability? What do you mean by love?
Yeah.
Like those things are really important to understand, because if we're using a word that we define differently based on our experience, then we can get completely lost.
For sure.
And one thing that I love having people break down is, what does it mean to stand up for yourself? Like, what does that mean? Especially men,
Mm-hmm.
right? And especially men that are in this kind of spiritual, esoteric path, right?
Yeah.
Because you start to lose that masculine piece,
For sure.
right? And it's like, well, how can you be kind
Mm-hmm.
and compassionate and resilient
Mm-hmm.
and assertive? Like those things, being able to understand and really define what those things mean to you,
Yeah.
really it means a ton in how you conceptualize and act those things out.
Yeah.
I think there's something to really be said for that.
So what do most people say? Like, what are some of the things? Because I'm just curious on my own. I'm like, I don't even, like, I would say 5 years ago, standing up for myself would have meant like, fight somebody if they come at you or do all those things. And now I'm like, I don't even like feel the need to stand up. I don't even care to stand up for myself anymore.
So that's a challenging place to be. So
Yeah.
most guys will come out and say like, or really anyone. I don't want to put this just on guys, but
Yeah.
it is kind of a masculine form of expression to say like,
Yeah.
that means that you have to be against something.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like I'm standing up against something. And that's
Yeah.
like, I'm like, well, okay, that's a story.
Yeah.
Right. Like, do you have to be standing up against something? Like, what does that mean? Because
Yeah.
with guys, you know, this and the expression of the masculine is very much journey focused, right? Like you need a path, you need a mission, you need something to aspire to be and
Yeah.
aspire to do.
Yeah.
And then if you can do that without being super outcome attached,
Yeah.
that's a really nice place to be.
Yeah.
Then you're free. Then you're like, okay, well, I'm showing up for this, and I can appropriately set the bar where it needs to be to take action, right?
Yeah.
And then continually be responsible for how I'm showing up for that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first thing we kind of that comes up, and I think that's probably the most common thing that comes up too is but the belief that standing up for yourself means standing up against someone else, right? And where I take that out, I'm like, that's a very heady type of place to be, because you're then, if your boss is an asshole, it's your boss is an asshole, and that's outside of you,
Right.
and you have to maybe stand up for yourself. You get pushed past the limits and you get defensive, and then you stand up for yourself in an aggressive way.
Yeah.
That's not what I would say is like an empowered way to stand up for yourself. To me, I'm like, okay, well, what are the components of standing up? Right? If you're to stand, like literally stand up for yourself, it means your feet are on the ground.
Yeah.
And you're standing tall. So you're grounded and you're tall, and you don't need anyone to hold you up.
Yeah.
Like you're there. You are an entity of your own, living being, standing.
Yeah.
You're here. You're standing up for yourself. Like the first time you're a baby, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, holy shit, I'm standing up for myself. Like, and that's where it gets like, okay, I'm here now. Now I can walk. Now I can move.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to stay grounded. I need to stay tall. Like I don't want to be falling over and all over the place and in this cumbersome lifestyle. And it's like, well, if I can stand up for myself and I can do that well, then I can stand up for someone else.
Yeah.
Right. And then I can like lock arms with someone else and move in a more powerful direction. We can do more work together.
Yep.
But that, just like the Spartans would say, like if you can't hold your shield, you can't play.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you got to be able to stand up for yourself and bring that. And then your response to your boss being an asshole is being assertive and standing up for yourself and like, hey, these are my boundaries. Because if you can stand up for yourself with appropriate boundaries and not let it get too far and infringe upon your ego, well, then you're in a good place. Then you have a healthy space there to be able to respond and not react.
For sure. The funny thing, you said something about being defensive. So like if your boss comes up to you and says something, you
like
might be
belittling
defensive
or something like that.
Yeah. What it is, and what I've come to realize. I heard someone say this one time where he was talking about insecurities. And if you think about your insecurities, I think it's basically a button that can be pushed. Or if you think about it, like, and so, you know, if someone comes up to you, you know, and says, hey, Connor, you're ugly and you have pink hair. You're like walking down the street, you'd be like, I don't have pink hair. That doesn't make any sense. This person's crazy. But if someone comes up to you and says, Connor, you treat women like shit in relationships, or whatever it is that's your insecurity, and it fires you up, you have to realize whatever it is, it's not their fault that hits you, because it never hit you when she said you have pink hair.
Yeah.
But whenever she says this one thing, or whatever happens, that insecurity in someone saying it is not their fault. It is your fault that you're holding on to that insecurity. And that's where you ask yourself, okay, if I'm an angry person, if I'm an emotional person, if I react in ways that I don't want to react, what is the cause of that? Like what is making me react in a certain way? Because that's usually an insecurity that I'm holding on to, something that I need to get past. And if you're actually holding on to that insecurity, well, you're going to hold on to it forever. And every time that someone brings it up and says something to you about it, it's going to set you off. Just like, you know, the pink hair doesn't set you off. Well, because it's not your insecurity. But if someone says, you know, you do this, so this is how you treat people, and it's just that one insecurity, it's that one button, it's like you completely lose control of it. And it's like there's a, I was reading about it where it talks about, I always say that all emotions are just, you know, they're chemicals, and we can control them if we try to.
Yeah.
Not 100%. Like we are still animals, you know, like
they still come up. They feel them.
Yeah, you're still going to feel them. But if you realize that everything that happens, someone says something to you, and it could be, I love you. And that makes your neurotransmitters fire, which then send neuropeptides down your body and make your body create a hormone of whatever that is. It could be serotonin, it could be dopamine. It's like, oh my gosh, I feel so amazing. I feel, you know, this love, or whatever it is. But someone could also say something to you like, hey, you're a piece of shit. And neurotransmitters fire, create neuropeptides, and the hormones could be fight or flight. And you can get cortisol that pops into your head.
Yeah.
You could get something else that pops, you know, adrenaline pops into it. And you realize that all of it is just, it stems from the neurotransmitters, which is your thoughts. And then you realize, so hold on, that means that my emotions and every reaction that I have is completely controlled by my thoughts. And it's like the example that the quote, Eleanor Roosevelt, that no one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Yeah.
It's true. Those emotions that we feel are so natural are not natural. It's just something that some sort of pathway that our brain has created. But if we start to notice those feelings coming back up, we can try to stop ourselves in the middle of them and go, hold on, I'm starting to feel this feeling of fight or flight. Like I want to fight or whatever it is, and I'm getting pissed off or whatever. Let me take 6 deep breaths and just see what happens. And you try to actually like stop yourself in the middle of that reaction. And you'll start to realize that your entire life will change if you just take 6 deep breaths when you feel some sort of reaction, right? That's really what it is.
Well, and that's the big piece of what I put out there is like this is experience and then expression. Like in your emotional expression is an expression. It's like a triggered expression, and it's like that's what we look at is saying, okay, we have this experience in life, and here we are. We're in the present moment now. We're talking about this. And you have this feeling that doesn't really suit you. It doesn't really serve you anymore. Mm-hmm. But it's there for a reason. Yeah. It served you at some point. So if you can track down and be like, well, where the fuck did that come from? Yeah. Like why do I have that? Why do I get triggered by that thing? Mm-hmm. If you can look back and reflect on yourself and be like, oh, that's because, I didn't get attention from my friends when I was in elementary school, and I felt very inferior, so I started doing this different thing, and then that triggers me in some way. Well, then you're like, well, that doesn't serve me now. But then it was a defense mechanism then, and it's just patterned into who I am. So when you feel it come up, you can be like, oh man, I just need to have compassion for that 6-year-old kid who felt inferior, because that's what's pulling these strings right now.
100%.
And you can create a little bit of space, and then you develop a tool, just like the 6 deep breaths. Like, oh, I've got the tool for this. I got the right one for the job. I got the Phillips head screwdriver. Yeah. Like, let's do this thing.
Yeah, man, it's crazy.
Fucking then that spirals into just more confidence in dealing with shit that comes up. So when your girlfriend says something that she knows will piss you off, you go, all right, babe, I still love you. Let me take 6 deep breaths, and we'll revisit that.
Wait, so why did you say that? Switch it around and then make her answer. God, really? And then she's like, oh shit, why did I say that? Right? Then it turns into this like actual legit conversation. No, man, it's interesting. People, I think I'm obsessed with people, like just learning about them and figuring out why people are the way that they are. And when you stem it back to like almost everything comes from your relationship with your parents or something that happened to you before you were 6 years old.
Or lack of a relationship with your parents.
Exactly, 100%. And it's just literally our reactions to everything. And so I would say one of the most important things for people to ask is what the reactions are and how can I master these reactions, right? Like if you look at like some sort of sensei or something like if I think of like if you were to walk into a dojo and go up to some 85-year-old Asian man, there's nothing that you could do or say to piss him off because he's literally just mastered his reactions before anything else. And that's what I love about like the whole science of, and I don't even do any jiu-jitsu or taekwondo or anything. I don't do any of those things. None of the, I do no martial arts, but the key of martial arts is mastering your mind before you master anything else, and that's what I love that they practice. And it's like, we should all strive to master our reactions and try to be a better person, because if we walk outside, there's a million people out here that could piss us off if we allow them to. But it's more of how can I walk out here and be a complete master in my own dojo of my body, in my mind, right? Yeah. And it's like another thing that guy says that in the poem that I was telling you about. It's a spoken word. He says everything that happens to you in life is just like a gym. He's like, your mind is like a gym, and in order for you to grow your muscle, you have to put it through a lot of strain. You have to beat it up, and it will grow stronger. And he's like, your mind is just like, your life is just like a gym for your mind. It's just got a really complicated cancellation plan, right? Where it's like, there's only one way to cancel this whole thing, and that's it. But it's like, if you really think of it that way, a lot of people are like, well, what if I'm trying to, I hear this a lot. I'm trying to become positive, but I have so many negative people that are around me. What am I supposed to do? What do I do with all of these negative people around me? And I can't get rid of them.
You get that a lot with your people you work with?
Yeah, all the time.
Wow,
a lot of people ask me that. And so a lot of people, they're either in a relationship with somebody, or they happen to be, they're trying to become more positive, but their parents, their mom might be really negative. And so then they ask themselves, well, what am I supposed to do about this? Like, I'm trying to become positive. How do I navigate these relationships with people that I can't get rid of. And I say you have to view it as a challenge, right? If you can't get rid of your mom because she's your mom and she's super, like the most negative person that you know, is view it as a challenge, right? View everything in your life as a challenge. This is the universe or God or whatever you believe in challenging you to be like, well, how positive are you, right? Like you're not going to become a positive person without going through a whole bunch of negativity and testing yourself to be there. And so it's like, and then people ask, well, you know, why would I want to focus on positivity? Because if I focus on positivity, doesn't mean I'm ignoring all of the negative in the world. And I say you're not ignoring the negative. What you're doing is if you focus on the positivity and work on yourself and becoming better, you can then deal with all of the negative stuff in the world from a better place. That's what it's about. You're not ignoring any negative. What you're doing is you're actually handling the negative better when you start from a place of positivity.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the thing that people really get misconstrued of, like personal growth or, you know, power of positive thinking, all those things. It's not about like just not focusing on the negative. It's how can I make a positive out of every single thing that's negative?
Yeah.
And that's what I think is super interesting about it.
And there's so many different teachings of that. I mean, again, the obstacle is the way, right? And I think reframing what you mean by positive too, because we have this natural fucking tendency, which is such a mess sometimes, to be like, okay, I got to think positively all the time. Yeah. And then every time you don't, it's like, fuck, I suck. Yeah. And then you go down that road. I was like, damn it, I wasn't thinking positive enough today. Shit. Yeah. And then it was like, dude, that's you're on the hamster wheel of bullshit now. Yeah. Like you're just going round and round and round. Like you get off for a minute and it's like, okay, let me hop back on this thing because I need to be distracted from myself. Yep. And then when you can frame it as like positive as being is really just bringing your best self, right? It's like, what's the best version of you that you can bring to this? Like, where's that guy? How are you reacting in this situation as someone that you would respect if you were observing yourself? Right. That's extremely empowering.
That's probably the biggest key is if you were watching somebody that you respect act the way that you're acting right now, would you still respect them? Yeah. Like, that's the good question to ask yourself, because sometimes you look at yourself and we're so caught up in our day-to-day thinkings and things that we do that we realize that we don't realize the things that we do and the way that people react to them, which is why for a lot of people why psychedelics are so important is because it allows you to step outside of your body and view yourself as somebody else. Yeah. And go, oh, man, I really did not treat her the right way, or I really shouldn't have said that, because now I get to see from her perspective exactly how she took it, and I didn't even mean it that way, but then we're just so caught up in our own minds that we don't allow ourselves to get out of it. Yeah. And I think that's why, in my opinion, one of the most important things for people to learn is like extreme, or to work at, is extreme self-awareness. Mm-hmm. Like to really pay attention to every single thing that you do as if you're just watching it on a movie screen and you go, do I like that? I don't. Okay. Well, then what can I do what would I prefer that reaction to be next time it happens? And then you start to actually become very self-aware and you start to change all of the little things that you don't like about yourself and improve all of the things that you do like about yourself. And that's how you kind of get to this form of, without it being overdone, of mastery, right? Yeah. Mastering yourself before anything else, because everybody wants to master this external world and make everything outside perfect. But then you realize you can't control anything out there. The only thing you can control is just your internal world. Yeah. But when you master your internal world, it's funny how like all of the pieces of the external world start to fall in place.
So well said. Yeah. And from my experience, one of the first things that you can understand about yourself in this path of self-awareness is that rationalization and confirmation bias are really strong tools of the ego. Yeah. Right? You're going to try and you will rationalize your behavior and find a way to make it okay and like confirm your own thoughts and seek out information that confirm your own ideas constantly. And this is where compassion comes into play, because you've got to find some compassion for yourself and smile at that, like, wow, I just caught myself trying to like rationalize some bullshit. Right. That was really fucked up. Yeah. It's like, damn, dude, get your shit together. And that's one of the reasons I love journaling so much, because I'll literally be like, yo, dude, you got this. Like I'll talk to myself as if I'm another person. Yeah. And that's so powerful. So powerful.
That's exactly the reason I love journaling. Same exact thing.
And it helps you construct, because at one point too, we have to understand that a lot of the learnings that we have from thousands of years ago were verbal stories. Like we
Mm-hmm.
do love a narrative,
Mm-hmm.
and having a narrative, like you're gonna forget things, whether it be in a psychedelic experience or just your life experience or a really empowering conversation. If you can journal about that
Yeah.
and reflect on that, like how did I bring myself to that?
Yeah.
What did I take away? What does that mean for me? Like where does that fit in my life, and construct a narrative and almost kind of a story, which
Yeah.
is really in one that's done from a place of objectivity, not like gassing yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can really hold on to it.
Yeah. Do you know, I was thinking about this today. My very first journal entry was the 1 year anniversary of my father's death when I was 16 years old.
Yeah, I think you told me that last time. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize it. I was just thinking to myself, I want to look back on this one day and write and think about how I'm feeling, and I don't want to forget this. And I didn't even do it. I wasn't into personal growth. I wasn't in any of those things at the time. But I did it just from the stance of I don't want to forget this. But then what happened was I started in turn asking myself, like, why do I feel this? Like at 16 years old, I'm like, why do I feel this way? Like, why do I act this way in certain situations? And do I want to keep this? Do I want to keep this reaction in my life? Do I want to continue treating people certain ways? And I think I just got lucky in that sense where I had a pen. I still remember it. I had a pen. It was one of those like those notebooks, and on the front of it, I said, "Do not open. That's for you, Debbie." Like that was my mom, because I knew my mom might find it, and I was like, I literally wrote it on the front.
Which
so
means she's going to definitely open it.
She
if she
for
finds
sure,
it.
if she found it, opened it. There's no doubt in my mind. But then what happened was I started doing journal entries every year on the anniversary, and it wasn't like I did it every single day. It was just like it was just like this thing that I started doing, and I started noticing how I was changing as a person as every year went by, and how my life had started changing as the years started getting further and further down the road. And so I think that it's important, because what I always tell people when people are struggling with how do I journal is you just ask yourself questions. That's all you do. And
Yeah.
I just sit down with a pen and paper and ask myself questions. And, I can look back on yesterday. If I journal this morning, I can look back on yesterday and say, how did I show up in the world? Did I treat people the right way? And I can go through, and maybe something happens where I get into a fight with a friend or whatever it might be. And then I ask myself, why did I get into that fight? Why did I feel like I had to prove myself? Am I still feeling like I need to prove myself at 32 years old? And the answer is, yeah. All right. Well, where does that come from?
Sometimes, yeah.
Like, where does it come from? Do I need to prove myself? Whatever it is. And you just start to kind of self-assess. And slowly what you'll notice is as you're journaling these things, these bad habits or tendencies start to fall away, but only because of the fact that you're becoming more self-aware of them and you're catching yourself before you react to somebody.
Yeah.
So I think this world would be a much better place if everybody sat down with a pen and paper every single morning and journaled.
Dude, that's why I created a journal.
Yeah.
Shameless plug. Get the realness.com, the intention journal, asking yourself 3 empowering questions. And that's the thing,
Yeah.
it's like you need to, sometimes it's helpful. That's why I only made the journal 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I want you to, my whole thing with everything I do is like, I want you to do this, create this experience for yourself, and then
Mm-hmm.
take it and make it your own, right?
Yeah.
And the intention journal is the same way.
Yeah.
It's like, what's on your mind? How are you being seen? And how do you want to show up for your life?
Yeah.
That's it. That's 3 questions, and there's a allotted amount of space for each one. They kind of
Mm-hmm.
get shorter. And the whole thing is, too, with how you want to show up for your life, it's 4 words. It's 4 words. So it's like you can hang on to that, where it's like if you're out of alignment with one of those intentions that you set,
Yeah.
you can catch yourself and be like, oh man, I'm not being kind today. Kind
Yeah.
is a good one, because I feel like you can be kind and assertive, but it's hard to be nice and assertive. Nice is very superficial.
Right.
I've gone on several rants about that. But dude, it's huge. It's huge, and it's just a starting place. It's
For
like
sure.
the tip of the one, and it's like, okay, cool, I can see that. And one thing that's great about journaling too is the fucking pages don't judge you.
Well, this is what I was gonna say. This is you literally are taking the words out of my mouth. People have trouble journaling because they're afraid that someone's going to judge them. That, like, if somebody finds them, they're going to judge it. I think that's one of the main things that I've come to realize after teaching people journaling is that they're afraid someone's going to find it, so they don't get 100% honest. And I'm like, if you can't get honest with yourself, who can you get honest with?
Yeah, it's the thing. Oh, someone's gonna find it. It's like you're gonna find it.
Yeah, you're going to find yourself.
You're gonna judge yourself, and that's actually in the intro of the intention journal. Is like,
Yeah.
the only judgment that's in this book is yours.
Yeah.
So you can set that aside now.
Man, judgment's an interesting thing. I actually want to, I'm going to make a video on this soon about just how judgment's so interesting, because of the fact that judgment is not actually real, but judgment holds people back from creating the real life that they could have.
Self-judgment?
Judgment from other people.
Okay.
Because of the fact that if you really, when I think of something that's real, can you hold on to judgment? Can you literally hold on to judgment? You can't. right? And so we create these psychological fears, which aren't primal fears. Like a primal fear is you walk out, you get attacked by a lion. You need to have that fear, that fight or flight. So we don't have those when we walk outside anymore. So now what we have is we have these psychological fears that don't mean anything. Oh, this person's going to judge me. And that's a part of our brain that's kind of instinct because, 50,000 years ago we were tribal. And if we didn't fit in, we were screwed because we would be out of the tribe. And to be out of the tribe meant certain death. You were going to die if you're not in the tribe. But now in 2018, it's completely worthless. But the cool thing about it is that if you can get rid of that judgment and not worry about other people's judgment, this life is super easy because it's like you don't really have you're not worried about the fear of failure because the only reason you're worried about the fear of failure is because you're afraid of being judged by other people when you do fail. It has nothing to do with yourself. It has everything to do with other people's perception of you. But if you can release yourself from the judgment of other people, your life becomes super free and easy because it's like the quote, like, I am not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. It's I am who I think that you think that I am. Yeah. Right? It's like that quote, but if I can release myself from that and realize that if you judge me and you don't like what I'm doing, but I truthfully feel like this is my path and this is the thing that I should be doing, and your judgment doesn't matter to me, I'm free. Yeah. What else is going to hold me back? Except for my own personal judgment. But the only reason I would judge myself is because I'm afraid that someone else might eventually find something and find this judgment and judge me on it. Right? So my own personal judgment kind of falls away when judgment of other people falls away as well.
Yeah, and something to note here is that judgment and feedback are different, two completely different
way
animals,
different, yes.
right? But sometimes we don't get taught how to communicate that well.
No,
like it's funny
we
that
don't get taught communicate at all.
Yeah, we have communications classes in school, right, and even in college, and it's like, but I feel like step one in the communications class should be like, shut the fuck up and listen. And that's so funny because we don't learn how to give feedback, take feedback. It's one of the things I work with people on a lot is first off, just have some compassion for other people that don't know how to give feedback well most of the time. Unless you're in like Encinitas, California, where everybody's like spiritual bypassing at an elite level. Sorry, guys, and Encinitas. If there's any Encinitas listeners, I'm just clowning, kind of. Anyway, so. Yeah, and there's something to be said for that. It's like you probably don't know how to take it very well, and somebody else doesn't know how to deliver it very well. So you're going to end up taking that personally, and they're going to end up like being scared to give you feedback, and it ends up in this really negative loop. If you can set the standard for how you're going to share yourself and how you're going to give feedback, and that you can take poor feedback, even delivered poorly, without taking it super personally, and just understand that person's probably doing the best they can. I like to operate under the assumption that people are doing the best they can.
For sure.
That's a nice place to be. Yeah. Then you can start to mold a better formation of that relationship, of that communication.
Absolutely.
But it starts with cumbersome, clunky,
communication-ish
type thing.
You know what I would love to see everybody start with? I would love to see people just start with compassion for other people. Because when you start to realize that every single person that you're dealing with is just mostly a broken child inside, you really develop a lot of compassion for people. Where even if someone has a great childhood, there was still something that could have happened that to you it might seem like a small trauma, but trauma is relative depending on someone's life. And you realize that a lot of people don't realize that the problems that they have and the way that they treat each other and the way they treat themselves comes from their childhood and what might have happened. Like, someone could have had great parents, but they could have been bullied, or they could have had something happen to them that created this trauma that completely changed the way that they see the world. And when you start to view everybody as just a broken child inside, that's just doing the best that they can, that's trying to improve and hopefully showing up in the world the best that they can, it allows you to really not judge people, to not think differently, to not think bad about them, and to start from compassion, but also want to help people more.
Yeah, when and curiosity is a big piece of that too.
They're doing the best that they can.
Asking good questions and like, hey, where does that doesn't resonate with me? Like, where does that come from in you? And then not judging someone on the way that they explain themselves and let them get there. Like, shut the fuck up and listen again. You know, it's just let somebody, and then from there people can feel when you genuinely care and genuinely want to connect. 100%. And that doesn't mean you have to talk for 3 hours. That just means it could be a 2-minute conversation. But if you genuinely are there, like that's something that's noticeable, even if it's not consciously noticeable.
Do you want a secret to see your communication change like overnight? Is when someone stops talking, don't say anything for 3 seconds.
Oh, that's one of the best skills. That's what I was talking about earlier with my grandmother.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So much stuff spills out.
Right, because people don't usually tell you right away what they're thinking or what they're feeling. But if you give them the space to continue talking before you interrupt them and interject your thoughts and feelings because you weren't even paying attention to what they're saying in the first place because you were too busy thinking about what you were going to say.
Yep.
But if you go, I'm going to give them 3 seconds pause, somebody will usually tell you the real honest truth or go even deeper into what they're thinking or who they are. And if you really want to know the people that you're around, give them 3 seconds and they will start talking again, but they'll tell you more about themselves or more about the subject or more about the way that they're feeling than they ever have. Like, just shut up and listen, right? Like, that's the way that it should be. Allow them 3 seconds.
Yeah. And 3 seconds is a long time.
It's awkward.
Yeah.
It's really awkward at first where you're just like,
yeah.
oh, my God, this is a really long time. 1, this is be 2 minutes. But usually before you get to 2, they'll already start back up again.
Yeah. It doesn't take that long. It's funny. It's fun. And then in responding with questions, like genuine questions that show that you're fucking listening, it's also really important. It's like,
for sure,
respond with questions. Let somebody talk. And then they'll probably reflect that back at you and let you do that.
Yep.
And sometimes the gates come off and it just like is floods of all this because no one's ever listened to them like that or doesn't do it very often. Yep. Especially in romantic relationships. It's really important because you get to know, you feel like at 6 months in, like you know each other so well that you can just project what you think the other person's going to do based upon their previous actions. And that ends up funneling people into like feeling real stagnant, real tight.
If you just ask people questions, they will love you more than anybody else. And the reason why is because people love to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
But most people,
especially
if you go
podcast hosts.
Yeah, for sure. if you go to any networking event outside in the city down here, it's just filled with people who don't want to listen to what you're saying. They want to talk about themselves. And that's what people are used to. No matter what you do, go in and any of these office buildings, all of them are just people who just want to talk about themselves because they want to feel understood and they want to feel worthy.
Yeah,
if you allow them that space to talk about themselves and you are actually interested and you just ask them questions, you don't have to. I've realized that the best conversations that I've had are ones where I don't say anything. I just ask questions and then people just really start to connect with you.
Yeah.
Because nobody asks them questions about them, and people love to talk about themselves.
Yeah. Do you feel like you dodge that a little bit sometimes? Like I know I definitely do. Like dodge when people ask me like what I do for a living because you can ask a million questions about this lifestyle. Yeah. And I'm just like,
I tell them I do stuff on social media.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you definitely do. And I'm like, like I don't even say. I'm like, I just exactly. I'm like online marketing stuff.
Yeah, I just
and
do.
Then I'm like, or I don't even say anything and just ask them a question. Like, and they'll just gloss over it. It's like, oh, that guy just didn't talk about what he does. It's super fun though.
Yeah, I just tell people I run social media pages. Which I do. That's not a lie. Like I just happen to run my own social media is the difference. And the only
You're an influencer, bro. You need to embrace your influencerness.
Yeah, like I just don't like the phrase. Like I only like it's an interesting thing as far as like what I do. Like I don't know what to say. I don't like the phrase motivational speaker or any of those things because
I'm so glad you brought that up because I wanted to ask you about because you've moved away from the word motivational in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't feel like the phrase motivational speaker really pins it down. I feel like I'm just a creator. Like literally this morning I was sitting here watching spoken word poetry, which is why we've talked about it so much. Yeah. And I started writing again. Like, so one thing that I did when I started journaling when I was a kid was I also did a lot of songwriting. Songwriting is basically, without any music is a poem. So I've done a lot of poetry basically is the best way of saying it. And for years I would wake up every single morning and I would just literally force myself to write. And so I feel myself as a creator where, I got lucky because I started doing songwriting when I was younger, which is basically poetry, right? Then I took film classes in college, which I didn't even know why I took film classes. I was just like, this is fun. I want to do it. And then I got into personal growth and I started speaking to people and starting to realize that I was a good teacher and that for some reason people listened to me and I could at least, activate something inside of them. Yeah. And now I'm looking back and it's like the phrase, you can't connect the dots looking forward. I'm like, oh my God, all of those things have created me to do what I'm doing right now. Like I can sit down and I can take a feeling that I feel that's somewhere out in the universe. And I can go, how do I say this to then make you feel something when you watch it? Yeah. And how can I take this camera angle and put this in here to make you also feel something as well? So it's like, I don't see myself as like a motivational speaker. I see myself as a creator of, poetry and music and film and speaking and all of these things. And how can I put all of them together? And if you want to categorize me as a motivational speaker, sure, you can. But I just like to feel like I'm a creator and I just create all of these different things that hopefully invoke some sort of emotion in people to maybe make them change their minds about the way they think about the world.
That's huge.
To test their own self of the way that they feel. Like, that's what I think is, I like to make people, like Alan Watts, like you can read something of his and he's like, whoa. I'm like, wow, this guy's really testing the way that I thought I viewed the entire world. Right? And so I'm just thinking, like, how can I just kind of play devil's advocate a little bit and maybe make you step outside of yourself and be like, ooh, wait, why do I do that? Why do I act this way? Why do I believe in this thing? Is it because I was taught to believe in this thing when I was a kid? Maybe it's not right to judge somebody else if they don't believe what I believe in.
Dude.
Yeah.
The word why is so good.
Yeah.
That's the one that gets me. You can't connect the dots looking forward is really funny, because when I look back at my kind of trajectory to here, like I explained it to somebody last night. They're like, well, how does that even happen? And I was like, well, shit, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, my parents were addicts, so I spent a lot of time confused when I was a kid.
Yeah. But that's the truth. That's why you're good at teaching it, because you figured yourself out.
Well,
you started
to have a choice. It wasn't like I chose to just be extremely curious. And we talked about Strengths Finders earlier, which is like a book and a test, is a personality test, if you will. And my first one is restorative, which is like problem solving, which means I'm kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
If you look at like my ENTP is my Myers-Briggs, which is extremely accurate, which is the debater.
Yep.
One of the reasons I know that I just really, if I work for a man who has a competitive mindset, like he wants to compete for dominance, like that's not gonna go well.
Yeah.
Like I have to sidestep that, and it's like it's caused issues in my life. And this, again, I'm gonna say the obstacle is the way for the fucking fourth time on this podcast, but it went from being extremely curious and confused into being being emotional eating, essentially, just like eating my feelings away, being a fat kid, then feeling like, okay, I'm over this, and losing weight, and then getting into fitness, and then being really curious about that. So I had like a bandwidth for curiosity and a relentless why, just like wanting to learn about things, this desire to learn, into sharing that with people just because, into college, into coaching, and then seeing, I think college is when I started to actually look at how everybody was kind of the same but different. Like if you look at GDIs, which is like what frat guys would call the goddamn independents, right? Like it's the independents that aren't in fraternities. Yeah. And then you have the frat dudes or whatever, the Greek life, and they would just complain about each other. But I was like, I took a step back and I'm like, y'all are doing the same shit. Yeah. Like y'all are a group of people over here that dress different, but it's like Democrats and Republicans. Yeah. It was so fucking funny, and I was like, huh. Started getting curious about that, into CrossFit coaching, which is me speaking in front of people and feeling, I can resonate with people by being entertaining and sharing information, into, this is actually more about people now than it is about fitness. Yep. Into this, and it's like you look back at it and it's like, it makes total sense now, even though at the time it was like, what the fuck is happening? Yeah.
Yeah. And you're just literally trying to keep the plate spinning. You're just like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to try to keep them spinning if I can.
All through my 20s, like, it feels right. I don't know. I'm going to try and do it.
Yeah, 100%.
Fuck, I fucked it up.
No, man. I feel, my 20s was a bunch of broken plates. That's the way I would see it. Yeah, I try to keep as many of them spinning as I possibly could, but a lot of them are broken. But, if there's someone listening that's in their 20s, like that's what your 20s are for, is to break a lot of freaking plates. Yeah. And just deal with it.
Early 20s guys that I do, sometimes I'll do like a lifestyle design call with somebody who he's like, they're in college, and I'm like, man, just embrace the fact that you got a lot of fuck ups ahead of you. Yeah. And take every lesson you can see. Like, just fill your bag full of lessons from the fuck ups that are coming your way. Yeah. And that's good. If you know that going forward, then you won't feel like a failure when it happens.
For sure. Yeah. And you learn a lot through them. That's for sure.
Wrap this thing up now. We're going to have to do a 3-hour long show one of these days.
We will.
It'll be fun. So where can everybody find you, my man?
Same place as last time. No,
you've changed some things, huh?
Yeah, stuff's changed a little bit. My website might be up by the time it's done, which is robdial.com. But I'm on all social media as Rob Dial, and then the podcast is 3 times a week, and it's MWF Motivation. That's what it's called, because it comes out Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
That makes a ton of sense. Yep. Great name. And then we'll have all your info will be in the podcast description as well, wherever you find your podcast. Thanks for hanging out, dude. We'll see you soon, brother.
All right, bud.
That is our show, everybody. Thank you for hanging out. And if you made it to the very end, if you're one of those people that goes to the very end of the show, that you have a special place in my little heart, and I appreciate it very much. If you are down to get an intention journal, you can do that over at gettherealness.com. And if you're down with conversations just like this one, head over to the Realness community on Facebook. You just go to the Facebook and type the Realness community in the search bar, request access. I'm telling you right now, guys, there's a lot of free content in there. It's not going to be free forever. That's guaranteed. What's going on in there is lively and impactful and empowering and quite hilarious sometimes. People share some crazy, crazy stories. So you can find that, like I said, on Facebook at the Realness community. And what else we got going on? Realness retreat sold out, guys. Retreat number 1 is sold out. So stoked. We got sound healing. We got dance. We got Kirsten Asher coming down. Intern Abby is also going to be coming into town. We got my boy Josh Wiseman just making content, so you'll be seeing that out there. We're going to be podcasting from the retreat. Kirsten and I will do a few shows just to share the experience, and I'm so excited. We get to do this show and bring this to you guys, and it's me and the people behind the scenes that are making this happen. And to be able to create an experience that's inspired by what we cover on the show and the online community is, I'm incredibly grateful. So that's happening in Austin in August 10th to the 12th. So be on the lookout for some podcasts around that. And if you want to jump in the Facebook community as well, we'll be doing some Facebook Lives and just checking in with everybody, sharing the experience. Like I said, sound healing, dance, meditation. We're going to run out and we're really going to go to the Greenbelt and just wander around the original home of Connor Wanders, or go jump in Barton Springs, which is just a beautiful place. And I can't stop talking about it. Can't stop thinking about it. It's going to be an empowering experience for everybody. So if you're there, thank you for coming. If not, there'll be more in the future because this thing sold out so fast. We can't not continue what we got going on here. So thanks guys for hanging out. Of course, go over to onit.com/real and vocabulary.org. Promo code REAL for the core language upgrade course. Appreciate y'all so much. And also, I want to give a shout out to Whit Blue for providing us with some dope intro and outro music. I'm just going to drop some of her tracks in here just because I like to play you guys. I like to play y'all out with some smooth melodies. She's got some amazing music. I had a chance to hang out with her when I was in Venice doing a little podcast tour, and she's kick-ass. So much love to her for letting us use the music. We'll try to keep the music going on here. I enjoy that a lot, actually. Really enjoy that. Stoked on it. So enjoy some Whit Blue. It's WITBLU. Find her on Spotify. She's kick-ass, and we will see y'all soon. Peace.
Your truth isn't my truth, so what is true? How can we trust answers that we can't prove? You wanted me to love you, but I was too fucked up to trust you, and so I messed it up just like I always do. That my tears would crystallize, turn into something to get me high. Right now they're not doing shit for me, they're making me feel weak. I wish that my tears would crystallize, turn into something to get me high. Trust you, and so I mess it up just like I always do. I wish that my tears would crystallize, turn into something to get me high. Right now they're not